Hey folks, I'm Brett Kinsella, founder of VoiceBot.ai and Synthesia. This is Gain, the generative AI news rundown. Every week we come here and we talk about top stories like DALL-E coming to ChatGPT. This is right, ChatGPT is going to get some images. We have Alexa with a large language model behind it. We have Microsoft 365 Copilot imminently available to people in the Windows world. And as always, I have my colleague, Eric Schwartz, to join me to talk about the latest news in generative AI. Hey, Eric. Hello, Eric.
Sorry. I don't know what that.
Okay, so it sounds like Eric can't hear me right now.
Okay,
So we'll
I'll get down.
Okay, good. All right, so Eric, welcome. A lot of news in generative AI land this week. I think we should probably get right into it. For all of you out there watching in YouTube and LinkedIn, please give us a like, let us know you're here, do a little bit of comments. We definitely welcome that. Sorry, we're starting a little bit late, some technical difficulties as I am on the road and doing this from a hotel room in an undisclosed location. If you really want to know where it is, send me a LinkedIn message and I'll let you know. All right, folks. The first story we want to talk about today is Amazon Alexa. And so if we think about Amazon Alexa, one of the things that I like to talk about is that it really made Siri look like legacy technology when it first came out from a voice assistant standpoint. It was just much better with natural language, much better at speech recognition, could ultimately do more things because Siri was very narrow. But in some ways, when ChatGPT came out, it made Alexa look like Alexa had made Siri look like before, because the things that amaze us in one era become something we just take for granted in another era. I think is essentially the way I think about this, and we sort of take for granted what Alexa can do. It's like a really great in-home command and control device. It has some features. It's never really been great at conversation, but ChatGPT has been amazing at conversation. And Alexa, Amazon wants to add some of that. And so this is what they announced this week. I happened to be at Amazon. I actually played with it. I got this firsthand interaction with the LLM mode. I'm happy to sort of break down some of the different items associated with it. But I want to start with Eric. What's your reaction? Because you saw it from the outside. You just saw the streaming video. You didn't get a chance to have hands on. But what was your reaction? Was it like, oh, this is really interesting, this is really compelling, maybe more than interesting, or this is like wait and see, or not really that interested?
It was very interesting. I mean, there was a lot. They really hit. I mean, in between talking about all the new things Alexa can do, they're also throwing out a bunch of new devices at the same time. So there's a lot to take in. But I think one thing that has been prevalent in talking about voice assistants is that what's the thing everyone uses their voice assistant for? The weather and timers. And it seemed like there was no real broad interest in some of the more advanced capabilities. But with ChatGPT and generative AI assistants really opening, I think, a lot of people's eyes to what AI can do now. It might be just, that the audience is now ready for the product, and the timing is there for Amazon to release a lot of what it's been working on that it didn't necessarily think that people wanted to use.
Yeah. So first of all, it is different. And I'll bring up a couple things around sort of how it's different from a customer standpoint. This is from the Synthesia article that I put out that afternoon after the demonstrations. So you can definitely have these open-ended conversations, and it's called the Let's Chat feature. And one of the things, I did talk to Rohit Prasad, who's the head scientist, and used to run the Alexa group, and now it's just doing generative AI broadly across all of Amazon, including AWS. And it's two models. Essentially, they have the old intent model, the NLU-based system that Alexa was built on, that everybody knows, and then they have a new LLM-based model. So you actually don't have the LLM capability unless you say, Alexa, let's chat. And so that sort of takes you into that new domain. And it's not intent-based. You can't access other skills, like existing skills, except for a couple that are based on the new feature set associated with the LLM. Because Let's Chat won't actually query the old intent model. to access either first-party skills from Amazon or third-party skills. So that's like the first thing that people should know. But you can have these open-ended conversations, and it is really interesting. And it's much more like a ChatGPT-like experience. However, talking to Rohit was really interesting. He said that when they looked at the user experience of the text-based bots, whether it be Bard or ChatGPT or these others, they're actually very good at having these long conversations in text. But if you try to translate word for word, response for response with a voice and a conversational interface, it doesn't work. So he said it's just like a terrible user experience. And you can think about that, like the verbosity of ChatGPT, particularly a GPT-4 model version of that. It's too verbose. So he's like, it's not right. And so it's not going to be that comfortable conversation that you would expect. And so one of the things they had to work on is with the LLM, ensuring that it had more terse responses. And I'm sure they're doing that with a combination of model tuning as well as prompt engineering or system meta prompts, those types of things. But it is pretty good at that. The other thing that like some people won't notice, and they didn't even mention this, is barge in. So when you're doing this, you can barge in, which if people don't know what barge in is, it means like, a lot of times you like ask Alexa for something and then it starts answering and you're like, oh, that's not right. And you try to like correct Alexa. You can't barge in really naturally like you would with the human, where you just talk. You say, no, that's not what I mean. The only barge in you have is like you have to say Alexa, and then it'll keep talking for a little bit, then it'll recognize you're trying to activate it, and then you basically have to start the process over. Whereas this basically maintains context and you can just start talking. However, as cool as that looks, it only really works on Echo Show 8s with cameras with what I think they call adaptive context enabled, which means it's using the camera to look at you, look at your facial movements, and identify that you're speaking. So it is cool. Barge in something that people wanted for a long time, but it is cool. But it's a very limited use case at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because when Dave Limp was on stage, he was talking about how he thought Alexa was the best, but that it always felt very transactional to him.
Yes.
And I think there's the thing about voice assistants in general is that you want them to be proactive, except when you don't. You want them to add stuff when you're talking to them, except when you don't. And so giving it the ability to know when you want to continue interacting with it and when you're not paying attention to it and it should stop talking, that's sort of honestly like emotional intelligence or just a understanding of human behavior, which does need the camera for, but that makes it go from being a computer off in virtual world to a character that's in the room with you and reacting to you as you are actually behaving.
Yeah,
words you're saying.
I think, and Max Child, a lot of people know Max from Volley. He was there as well, and he and I were chatting about that a little bit. He's just like, he was wondering how that's going to work. So first of all, what it'll do, and I talked to Rohit about this, it's like, if once you open that Let's Chat session, it sort of maintains persistence. It's not clear how long it maintains the persistence of that, where you can just look at it. And it's only going to talk when it thinks it's part of the conversation and you're looking at it. He said, like, if my wife walks into the room and I say something to her, it should be able to discriminate that I'm not talking to you. So that's like really interesting. But Max and I were talking about this thing was like, do we have to like give focused attention? He's just like, it's like I have to lock eyes with you, Brett, when I'm talking with you. Do I have to lock eyes with Alexa? But so these are like sort of low level things, but a lot of people have wanted that really natural human interaction. And this moves us towards that. But like, there's a lot of exceptions and you really have to have full attention on the device to get that to work.
For now, yes, but I mean, when they were doing a live demo, it wasn't just a video, and
yes,
there were some hiccups, but overall, it performed almost exactly as I'm sure they wanted it to.
It worked really well, and I mean, and related to this as well as no wake word. So the no wake word, you don't have to say Alexa. After you do Alexa, let's chat. It's a sort of an open session. It's listening to you, but also you need to really be looking at it, the device. And so what like being in the room, it might not have been as clear, but I think you probably saw it on the video stream. Dave was basically over at the side table. There's a big screen in the middle so everyone could see what was going on the Alexa device. He was over in the side and he was looking at the Echo Show 8 and he was having this conversation. But he would do some sidebars with us. Like he would just step more towards the center of the stage and say, let me tell you what you just saw there. Now, when that was happening, Alexa could hear things in the background, but like I assumed that Dave wasn't referring to Alexa at that point, right? And so, but then when he wanted to re-engage with the conversation, he then had to go back and actually be in front of the device so it could see him, right? So that's one thing. But in that case, he did not have to do the wake word. The other thing too is it does do that context maintenance, which I think was really cool, and he showed some personalization.
Yeah, and obviously Amazon has this complex system of foundational pillars for Alexa and how they think of it. But what it honestly can be boiled down to is that they want that it should be adaptive to you, and it should learn. It should get better at responding to you and better at anticipating your needs, and both in the larger sense of turning on lights or whatever, but also just in the you're looking at me, I should be aware that you're going to talk, or you're not paying attention to me. It's the really little things that I think push Alexa from that go past the uncanny valley of voice assistants, from being it's okay if it's just a robot that responds when you talk, to being more comfortable with it being a more having more personality, and as it does in many ways now.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so there's a couple other things about it. So Alexa with an LLM, so it's like this Let's Chat feature. There's a few other things to think about. So just from a functional standpoint, there are new tools or new skills. Splash and Character AI has one, and there's one other I think that they demoed. I only tried Splash and the Character AI. Character AI, generative AI, right? So you make your own bot, your own virtual boyfriend, girlfriend. You can talk to Elon Musk. They've got all sorts of different types of assistants there, like a very popular web-based generative AI solution.
And solving the issue that Character AI has been having.
What's that?
And solving the issue of every Character AI having the same voice.
Yeah, exactly. So I did talk to the Grace Hopper. They only had 2 characters available. I talked to the Grace Hopper character. Hey, Roy, coming in from Australia. Great to see you there. And it was pretty good. It was a synthetic voice. It was not Alexa talking. It was like interactive. I think I didn't feel it was a great experience, but we were in a large room with a lot of people in different stations who were testing all sorts of different things. And I felt like actually some of the delays were Character AI and not Alexa oriented. Which, because I think it's going, they're doing multiple hops to get to Character AI. But it is interesting. And we think about these entertainment use cases with LLMs on Alexa. And I think it will be really interesting to see if that is as popular as Character AI is on the web. And it may be, based on the way that people are using it today. We could talk more about some of the conceptual ideas, but you also had a story that I thought was interesting related to this, is it wasn't just about Alexa and the Echo Home and the smart speaker. It was about all the smart home devices, including Fire TV. So you wrote up a little bit about that, and I'd be interested in your perspective.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in some ways this is something that Amazon's been talking about a long time, about making Alexa more proactive, about giving it the ability to learn from your behavior to better anticipate future behavior. But with generative AI, it sort of takes it to the next level in terms of when you make a routine, you can just do it by your voice. When you want to chain together multiple actions, you just do it immediately. There's so many little ways that it enhances with the latent goal inference and the hunches and things like that. But because of using an LLM, the sort of the vision of the voice assistant that they always talk about now seems like an actual reality, or at least a lot closer to reality. The skepticism that I always feel every year when Amazon does their presentation about how Alexa is so smart and so responsive to you now actually looks a lot more like what's actually happening.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, I think it's worth noting is, and there's a question here from Dominic, is there anything new in this Alexa release that we've not seen generally across conversational AI? And I would say that from a conversational AI assistant standpoint, yes. Just the way the conversation is in a voice first spoken interaction. This is different than what you're seeing from the chat interfaces. This idea that they are doing much more context maintenance and personalization with the LLM is different and significant.
Yeah.
And then the way they're infusing it, and I think across their other features. So, the head of Smart Home, Charlie French, presented. The head of Fire TV, Daniel Rouse, presented. I talked to Daniel personally afterwards. They're infusing that as opposed to the Alexa NLU model. And there's, essentially there's an orchestration layer going on right now sometimes for some of those systems that's deciding where these requests are going to go. But it is enabling more conversational interaction to get things like your shows, or to create routines just with your voice and natural language. You don't have to say things precisely the way you used to have to say them.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, the big things are obviously big and important, but I can attest to this myself in terms of smart home devices. I don't always remember the name of every single device in every single room, but if I can say the Echo in this room or the smart light in this room, like without having to remember which light it is or what names I gave everything, or if I had remembered to change it, that's right there takes away so much friction of just my general use of voice assistants.
Yeah, and you could say turn on all the lights except for the bedroom, or turn off all the lights except for the bedroom.
Or things like that. I'm going upstairs. Things like talking to it more and more like a human. That again, I was always skeptical about before, but now seems like it's actually a thing that's going on, because that is how you interact with ChatGPT and things like that, and it does understand those contexts.
Yeah, and I feel like whether it's Siri or Google Assistant or Alexa, I think to a certain extent, like they were really good with natural language. But very often, if you wanted precision in terms of what you get back from them, it was almost like reverting to the old Palm Pilot. And if people don't know what the old Palm Pilot was, it was sort of this revolution in handheld devices. And what they did is they had a stylus, and they basically created their own script. So the Apple Newton failed because it tried to use a stylus, and it was trying to let you write just like you write an A or B or C. The actual Palm Pilot actually taught you how to write letters differently in order so and it was highly reliable. But the whole point there is almost like Boolean search. A lot of people won't know that either, but it's like there's early search engines. If you knew Boolean operators, you could get much better search results. You basically had to modify your language in order to make the system work as efficiently and as effectively as you want to. And I kind of felt that most of the voice assistants, for a variety of reasons, fell into that groove, and a lot of users did. Whereas this is like the natural language just works.
And importantly, extending it to third-party devices as well, because you and I have seen a couple homebrew people connecting ChatGPT to various smart devices or robot dogs, and just seeing what happens. But in this case, talking about like smart vacuums and just saying there's a mess on the floor of the kitchen, and it understands that means turn on your connected vacuum robot and send it out to clean up. Like it's not world shaking, but it takes away that much more friction and makes you that much more likely to buy a product, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Daniel Rouse. He's the head of the Fire TV group. Actually, he's more than Fire TV, because I think he's got the whole entertainment group for devices now. But it was his idea. I believe I verified this with him, to put the text-to-image generator on the Fire TV.
Yeah, the TV stuff was
just like a brilliant idea. Like I was like, whose idea was that? I mean, because it's a great idea. Like they should use it. Like this is like a practical, everyday consumer use of these ideas. And what he demonstrated was he pulled some of his photos up from Amazon Photos, and then like he changed the style of them and that type of thing. But you could just you create anything you wanted. And I thought that was like a really good idea to have this like personalized experience in the home for the biggest display usually in most homes.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a thing I've said for a long time, but the convergence of smart TV and smart display now at this point, like when you have something like that, you may as well just call it your Echo Fire TV instead of trying to, it's just the same thing at this point, because you're going to want to use it because now you have all these cool capabilities and the ability to speak naturally and get your TV to do what you want.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so another point I wanted to bring up, and I know that we're taking a lot of time on this from an Amazon standpoint, because I think this is significant. I mean, this is a platform with 400 million devices, that sort of have this, and over 1 billion are connected devices to it. So this is like in a very important home platform. In a lot of ways, they've won the home. I was actually talking to someone else at Amazon, senior executive, who I won't say who it is, but like just talking about like how Google sort of retreated from the home a little bit, because they're just like, we have the phone, that's probably good enough. It's not that the speakers have gone away, but they're not really innovating in that space anymore. So this is like really important. But Dave said something that was really clever, and I think it might be true. I think it's largely true. He said most of the generative AI we've seen to date has been for creators. It's about creating that blog post or creating that image, or summarizing something so that you can like write up a story about it or something like that. He said there hasn't been a much around consumption. And what he was doing is he was basically characterizing that your everyday life, the consumer in the home, you're basically a consumer. You do consumption. You're consuming media. You're consuming the services of smart home. You're consuming content from your Echo device, whether it's music or weather or timers or whatever it might be. He even made it sort of a funny comment. He's like, Alexa is more about weather and timers, which sort of got a chuckle, because like we all know that everybody uses that. But I think that's really interesting. And you and I have talked about this when we talk about ADOT, we talked about character AI. These are entertainment use cases. The virtual companions look like they might be very popular generative AI powered entertainment experiences. And so, this whole idea of the next wave, we've got this whole business wave around productivity and creation and solving problems so you can do things faster than you've had to do before. But we have this other idea around consumption, and maybe we're at the start of this wave. Whether Amazon is able to seize on that or not is different. But what do you think?
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think about how one thing Amazon had been sort of subtly pushing is trying to get people to put at least a small Echo show in their kitchen and to treat it like your recipe book and things like that. And there are these new tools, I think, from like Sony and from some smaller groups about where instead of just literally having to type out what you have and then maybe it'll have some recipes, all you have to do is literally hold it up to the camera or just describe broadly what you have. Some vegetables right will come up with solutions or with recipes or ideas, or and then of course linking to buying anything else you need. And I think it is those little things like that where the casual conversations you have with other people in your house and you're trying to like figure out solutions. If the AI can help you with those in the moment, when you say, what do you want for dinner? Here's what we have, what should we make? And it tells you, here's some ideas. There's a mess, we need to clean that up, and then it's on it. These are the things that are going to really make I think take the smart home concept to an even bigger potential user base.
Although you did lament that they keep coming back to recipes.
Yeah, well, and occasionally, I mean, there was a story I saw about somebody tricking it into giving a recipe for chlorine gas by saying all they had to eat was bleach and some other stuff, and somehow that was like, oh well, here's a recipe I found for using those ingredients, and nope, not a good idea.
Yeah, if text to image generators are all about horses, teddy bears, and astronauts, then the voice assistants are all about timers, alarms, and recipes.
And the weather. Don't forget the weather.
And there you go. And the weather. Okay, great. So I thought that was like really interesting. Hey, folks, this is Gain, the Generative AI News Rundown. We do this every week, usually on Thursday at 11, but I was on the road. Eric was busy yesterday too, so we're just trying to do a catch up here on a Friday. If you're out there, let us know you're there. Just make a little comment on LinkedIn or YouTube. Also, give us a like. If you're on YouTube, you can also give us a subscribe. That'd be great. But just a like, and let us know you're here. Make comments, ask questions. We're happy to incorporate you into the show. We'd love to know who's out there. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was an interview I had with the CEO of HourOnes, and they have some new capabilities out here. Now, HourOnes, I think a lot of people will be familiar with them. They have virtual human technology, and it's one of the better solutions out there. And it was interesting talking to him. And so if you haven't seen it, there's a podcast on it, but there's also a video podcast. It's up on the VoiceAi YouTube channel. I think you might find it interesting because they started in 2017 because he was interested in the attention is all you need transformer paper. He sort of left another job, and he's like, he started working on this, and he was really interested in the integration of the GANs and the LLMs. And so that's where he started, like, initially, and that's why it sort of led to the GANs being the virtual human, and the LLM, being the ability to speak and interact. But they have some new technology out, which is really cool. And I thought I'm going to give this a shot to see if I can make this work. And you just give me a thumbs up, Eric, if you can hear the video or hear the audio.
I'm Oren, founder of HourOnes AI. What is HourOnes AI? Well, for an uploaded text, we generate a video and send it right to your screen. Yes, a video. Is the video any good? No. Our video is great. Damn. Remind Kahani to disable moderation next time. You can find us on HourOnes Discord channel, and the party is on. Hi, I'm Oren, founder of HourOnes AI. What is HourOnes AI? Well, for an uploaded text, we generate a video and send it right to your screen. Yes.
Okay, so for those who are watching, they just saw what happened. But it's for those who are listening. If you happen to be listening to this afterwards, we weren't replaying the same thing, the exact same thing. What we were doing is we were showing the footage that was actually taken. And one of the things I think that is fascinating about this is what they've been working on is this idea of transforming stock footage of humans and being able to modify what the person is saying and make it look natural. And so what you did the first time is you basically just saw what looked like kind of like a Dollar Shave Club copy or homage, in terms of a launch video around it. He's sort of walking out, talking about how great it is and sort of fun, type of thing. But frankly, what we showed afterwards, when he just showed it again, it was the source video, which was really just him sitting at his desk, standing up, walking out into the other room in his office, and then going into another room and sitting down, not saying anything. And it automatically, and then what they did is they basically added a script, which was what you heard. And then the system automatically animated his facial movements, his mouth movements, to make it look like he's speaking. And he told me that, like, you can do that with a synthetic voice for, that is him. You can be a synthetic voice for text to speech, or you can upload an audio recording, and it'll automatically do the matching. And so originally, I think it was codenamed Selfie Tech, but like he told me that it's this Reels Activate now. I think it's really fascinating. There's another demo that he showed where it's like he just took stock footage of a video of a guy riding on a motorcycle, and then he just like added text to it and shows him talking while he's riding the motorcycle. It was like really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it takes the idea of the classic not very good photoshopping of just putting your image on a weird background to a very, very different level where it's you can see yourself talking and moving and doing stuff that you never did. I mean, I assume the confetti was also overlaid, and he didn't just throw confetti around his office, but it looked just as real as anything else there. So it's amazing. HourOnes has been doing has been ahead in a lot of ways when it comes to these this kind of technology, and clearly they're going to be I don't know what their next step is, but I can picture a lot of businesses being very excited about using that kind of technology.
Yeah, a couple of things we talked about, which I'll just highlight before we move on to the next story. But first of all, some people might be familiar with like Runway and things like that. Runway's been extending at the time, but it was always very short clips. It was just a few seconds. I think they might be up to 20 now. He and I talked about this idea that you can run this for an hour if you want. It'll work properly. Once you get past about 20 seconds, it's a lot easier to do that. So that's like one of the things that I thought was particularly interesting. The other is just change in the business or in terms of the potential users. So HourOnes has been much more, they've worked with influencers for sure already, like created like CGI. They actually offered to do it for me, like create like go into a studio or, take a lot of high res, 4K video feed. They would basically render a model, of me and they turned me into a virtual human.
Redkin Synthetica.
Yeah, oh, that's good. I like that. But there's like a overhead associated with that. And so what most of their customers are like doing more business use cases. I think this really opens it up to more creator work, and maybe some everyday user, like social media development. So I thought it was really fun, but I think we should move on. That was fun.
Yeah, I would just say that they're in a cluster of like almost a mini Silicon Valley of generative AI over there that I think they're all feeding off each other and really competing to push ahead of their own community, really, which I think is why they're not resting on their laurels.
Well, and when you're saying that, there's Israeli companies, so that there's a sort of companies between Herzliya and Tel Aviv, which are there's a lot in the generative AI space broadly, and a number of them are doing a lot of very interesting things on the vision and image side, which we don't talk as much about because I think we talk more about large language models, and we're going to get back to that. Our next story is Microsoft Copilot. Sounds like it's finally, but not really, but almost finally here. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I avoided comparing it to Clippy because I felt like that was too lazy, so I wanted a flying metaphor instead. But it really is like what Clippy was to Word and what Cortana was to a couple of years of Microsoft. They're now saying, they're pretending Cortana never existed, but this is what they I think part of how they imagined Cortana operating is that with Windows 11 you have this AI assistant that is there to answer questions, to help you and proactively to offer suggestions, and it's built in not only into a conversational level, but it's built into all the classic Microsoft Windows apps of Paint and of the Clipchamp, the video one, and snipping, using it for everything from extracting text from images to straight up text to image tools, and then critically linking it into all related features for the Edge browser, for Bing, and it's really like Microsoft has been building up to this and honestly pushing ahead in the enterprise space. Now they're basically saying, hey, are you a Windows user? You're now a generative AI user as well as the way that you were an internet browser user.
And it's an assistant, not a feature. Correct. So if I contrast it with Duet, like Duet AI from Google for Google Workspace, there are features in the different applications that you use, Google Docs, Google Slides, like the Duet box will be there to do things for you, which is fine. But they don't really have this concept of just like an assistant always there across all your applications. Yeah. And so this is maybe one of the advantages of having like a PCOS where you can then put it across. What I don't know is what's going to be more successful. So this is not, they're not talking about the announcement of this being available next week for all 365 users. Microsoft 365, which is the old Office suite. They're talking about this being part of Windows. So anybody who has Windows can then use it across their Microsoft products, and it's presumably across anything the OS touches on the laptop, correct?
Yeah, and because exactly the difference between Google. Like Google has this very it has this core technology and it's fragmented it across all of its various apps and products. And what Microsoft has done is said all these apps and products are using the same interlinked Copilot. It's the idea that's like, okay, you're sitting down at your computer. Everything you're doing on your computer is based around your operating system, obviously. So if you have a PC, that's Windows. Windows is a generative AI provider essentially now, and all the things that you do offline and online now have your Copilot sitting there in the background, offering ideas when asked, or even when not asked, depending on what's happening, and drawing on all of those products and apps to help you out. And I think it's definitely a big deal. I honestly feel like this is the seed of a future antitrust issue, like Internet Explorer was, if I'm honest. But not for a while.
I'm not sure about that, but okay, yes, it could be. So yeah, I think it's interesting because that's like full bore assistant. That's the takeaway I would have for people here. It's like it's an assistant across all your things, and I think Satya characterized it as like everyday use. Excuse me.
And notably multimodal. I mean, it's not they're not Cortana is dead, but the voice assistant on Windows is back again. So,
yeah, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. And I think about this assistant like across everything, like an assistant. This is the old Adam Shire thing, one assistant. Although one assistant on your desktop is not one assistant on your phone, because Microsoft doesn't really have much position there on the phones. Versus Google, which is taking this more segmented approach, is like by feature. Now Google might come back to that, like an everything assistant, like they've tried that before.
Yeah.
But although I won't say that like I'm a huge fan of Duet. I've used it. It's okay. I don't necessarily endorse it. I don't think it's like, I think there's other tools out there that are good. I think it's really interesting. I think like what Google's trying to do might actually be more successful initially. Because I think it's harder to get the Omni assistant to work.
Well, and it's also that it's like, oh, you're like, oh, I want to do this image thing, and oh, I have Paint open. Oh, hey, there's all these AI tools right here. I don't have to like think about anything else. Like, that's what makes having the operating system so critical for Microsoft. And I do think it's funny that like in the same week, Google and Microsoft both basically put out their philosophy of generative AI, because Google have their own stuff going on that we may not get to. But I do think that this is sort of the thesis statement for how Microsoft envisions generative AI being used by most people.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, that's a good tee up. Why don't we talk about it? So you want to? I was gonna actually talk about ChatGPT, but let's talk about Google.
Oh yeah,
Bard.
I mean,
let's go to Bard right now, and then we'll do.
Yeah. I mean, it was less of a obvious like, oh my god, the basic tool that everyone uses on their computer is now all generative AI. But Google, after talking so much about Duet last week, is now had put out a bunch of updates for Bard, and most crucially, in my opinion, is the Bard extensions, which means that the Bard AI can now link with all of your Google products that you use, which means all of your personal emails and Gmail, your documents in Google Docs, Google Drive, all those things can now if you choose to allow it, Bard can access them, so you can ask it about any emails you've gotten about a certain subject, or ask it to summarize the emails you've gotten from certain people. It goes so far as not only linking to those sort of personal accounts, but also YouTube and Google Maps, and combining all of Google's various tools and the not only the online tools, but also the personal data to really make it Bard more comprehensive in answering questions and helping figure out tasks that you want to do. It's really it's a different kind of comprehensive generative AI, but in its way, it is as comprehensive as what Microsoft's doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. So, like, we think about this, and by the way, Dominic actually just made a comment. Copilot seems like, or seems a little beta at the moment. Is that a fair assessment? I don't know. One thing I can tell you is I do have some information that's not public, that which I don't have any problem sharing with everybody here. There is a company out there that I'm aware of that has 30,000 employees working on 365 every day. And I think what I believe is I think there's actually over 1 million people who have been using it in their test group.
Yeah, and because it's coming out as in various places, but because it's a Windows 11 update, that means if you think of it like a Windows 11 update, that means that it's going to come out, it'll be mostly good with some bugs, then the next update will fix those bugs, and then keep going.
Well, and I think the idea here too that I've been thinking about is that there's this Copilot idea, which will ultimately be one Copilot, is Dr. Roy Mariotha said, one assistant to rule them all, ? They've got the 365 Copilot, which is much more like Duet AI. But now they've got this Copilot for Windows, which seems like a Copilot over everything. It wasn't really clear to me that 365 Copilot would be beyond the 365, right? And so now we have this broader Copilot. And then we have Bard coming out, which is now the one assistant to rule them all for Bard, but then you also have Duet, which is like the feature set within things. So I think we're slowly starting to see some of this nomenclature change, which might be important for us understanding where things are headed.
And yet both are using just sort of, colored shapes, and there's no icon, not, again, you don't want to do the clippy thing, but like there's no real sense of like you see something and you immediately know you're talking about Copilot or Bard or anything like that.
Oh yeah. Well, like Google is never down with that anyway. They didn't really do a lot of personality persona development. There was some, but like it wasn't like a big thing. All right. Well, in any event, like let's just keep going with this because you know, so we had Alexa, like assistant world. We have Microsoft Copilot. They used to have Cortana, but they've been working on this assistant world for a while. We've got Bard, which looks like the new assistant. They're not getting rid of Google Assistant yet, anyway. I don't know. But then we've got ChatGPT, and I want to talk about this in the context of the DALL-E announcement, DALL-E 3. I've been convinced for some time that DALL-E 3 was being used behind the scenes of Bing Create. It's certainly better. I know you've tested a little bit. Better with text, those types of things. So DALL-E 3, like an upgrade in the text to image space, definitely worthwhile. I think we're seeing some segmentation in that space in terms of how you use them, what you might use some of the different tools for. But the idea of adding this to ChatGPT is actually much more significant because last I checked, 230 million users, somewhere between 2 and 4 million ChatGPT Plus users who are the paid subscribers. So that is actually really significant distribution very quickly.
Yeah, and especially because Microsoft is putting it into the Bing and Edge AI chatbots as well. So building into for all those users as well. And yeah, it does look pretty good. And I definitely agree with you that there's been a lot of behind the scenes testing of it. I think that it's going to be very consistent in being an across the board improvement from DALL-E 2. And notably, it's not just that it's in ChatGPT, specifically it's in ChatGPT Plus and ChatGPT Enterprise. So all us free users who are not paying $20 a month won't have access to
it. Right. Well, again, they're trying to figure out ways to do two things. One is entice people to sign up, but also cover all those costs for generating images.
And I will say their attempt to appease people who don't want their creations used for training these text to image generators is very it's almost passive aggressive, where what they're saying is that every image you don't want them to use, you have to send them and request that they not use it, which feels like if you're an artist who's made a lot of art, you're going to try to wear you out before you finish sending in all the requests, which again is a request. They don't necessarily, if somebody else says, no, I want you to use it, and no, it's actually mine, what are they going to do?
Absolutely. All right. So Dominic also asked, do you think they'll open the Copilot up to developers? And I'd say don't hold your breath. If they do, I think it'll be years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like some of the extensions for 365, but I don't know about within Windows 11.
Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Gain, the Generative AI News Rundown. We started a little bit late because of technical difficulties. And so we're going to try to bring this home before the top of the hour. And we have a bunch of stories. So we're going to do rapid fire rounds, Eric. Oh, by the way, at the end, I think we'll do winners and losers of the week, as we always do. I haven't really thought about that yet, so who knows what that's going to be. But if you have a winner or loser of the week in generative AI, please put it in the chat. We'll try to mention that as an option. But let's do some rapid fire. And so the first thing I want to talk about, we're staying in the world of assistants. Morgan Stanley rolled out an OpenAI GPT-powered assistant. We already knew this was coming. There was an announcement with OpenAI a few months ago. They took 100,000 documents, and they're basically running a RAG against it. People know what that is. They put it into a RAG, and they're running an LLM or GPT-4 against it. And I think this is just a perfect example of how knowledge management tools and these intelligent advisors based on knowledge management are just going to proliferate. It's like the #1 killer app right now in business. But the other thing I would bring out, and I put this in the Synthesia story about it, is that YMYL, your money or your life. Everybody's like, well, we can't use this because LLMs are not accurate. So anything related to healthcare or banking is not going to be the first to adopt. Well, what it turns out is healthcare and banking are among the first to adopt, which we'll see in the next story. Thoughts?
I agree. I think partly because healthcare and banking are also the most fact-checked, double-checked, audited. There's a lot of mechanisms already in place to check for issues from just from human error, so it's less shocking that way. But also, I think Morgan Stanley obviously giant, but I mean if they aren't already, I feel like there are going to be plenty of personal bank, Bank of
Yeah.
America, Capital One, whoever, they're going to be doing the same thing.
Excellent. And another example you wrote about this week, Oracle launches generative AI clinical voice assistant. Again, YMYL, that's your life, that's medical. So generative AI, but this to me is not that surprising, right? Because these are people with a lot of information, a lot of unstructured data, natural language data. They're the types of industries that actually have the biggest upside benefit from the productivity gains introduced by generative AI.
And Oracle's also a company that spent $28.3 billion to buy a health technology developer that was particularly well known for its voice assistant. So this feels like just building on exactly that belief or that strategy of incorporating AI into how doctors do their jobs.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, next story. Roblox. This is going to be sort of in our funding fountain or our finance section. Roblox acquires a voice AI moderation startup, Speechly. You reported on this. I know a little bit about it as well. Tell me what happened.
Yes, I mean, we've written about Speechly before. Voice technology developer, and Roblox has been very eager to get into the world of generative AI, and had been already teasing something that sounded a lot like Speechly in terms of voice moderation for games, for an AI that can understand what people are saying to the point where it can tell where there's a potential issue and alert moderators. And Roblox wants more and more people using their platform to build virtual worlds, virtual experiences and games, and having Speechly there not only for moderation, but also just to enhance their voice and audio interactive abilities is definitely going to be a boost for them, because Speechly is we've talked about, they have some of the most advanced thinkers in this space and some of the best patents and technology here. So I think for Roblox, this is it's just easier than building it in-house.
A key technology acquisition for them. Voice chat moderation, really important because also if you look at Roblox, mostly children, so they have other types of compliance and risk that they have to assess. And in the voice moderation space, in terms of identifying speech and
intent with
determining if it's toxic, we'll just use that term. Speechly definitely had the most advanced solution out there, so I think really smart by that. And it gives them option value to use that with their other generative AI solutions that they've been talking about, so they can do more voice interaction, natural language. I think it's a super smart move. Okay, so the next story we have is Writer, $100 million in new funding. A couple things about this. So Writer, why should we care about Writer? Jasper AI was first and the biggest, and they did layoffs earlier this year. Writer's kind of interesting because they have their own LLM. It's one you can see. It's on Stanford Helm. They compare it with other models out there in terms of accuracy and capabilities.
We were writing about them before ChatGPT was even a thing, because they were already basically moving in that direction before everyone started talking about OpenAI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really interesting. They're still getting those benefits, or they're getting new benefits because they can create something that's very specific to an enterprise. And they talk about hundreds of clients, whereas Jasper talks about 120,000 users. And it's really just the difference in their businesses, where Writer is really purely going after enterprise companies, and they're saying, we work with 100 enterprises, which might have hundreds of thousands of users. For all we know, we don't really know because they don't reveal that information. But they can also deploy this in custom instances for these companies, so they can make sure that not just there's tools in there that are customized so they're on brand, but also so there's no escape of data leakage of their proprietary information. So I think this is just an example. I want to point out to people that there's different business models that are out there as well. Okay, so let's wrap it up with winners and losers of the week. First winner, Dr. Roy Mariathis from Australia coming in, says the winner this week is Alexa. I think that's I think that's fair. I don't know that they're the winner this week, but I think it is a big win for Amazon to get this out here and get it out now, because I will tell you that thing was not ready for release 2 months ago. So some people spent a lot of long nights and weekends to be able to demo this, and we'll be able to use it very soon. So I think that's really interesting. And my winner this week is going to be Roblox, because I think the problem with voice chat moderation is a really significant one. Bringing in Speechly is basically going to help them solve that problem much more efficiently than they would otherwise. So I'll call them my winner. Who's your winner?
I'm going to go slightly broader and say basically anyone who uses Amazon products in general, because we didn't even get to it because it happened at the end of last week. But there's new generative AI tools for Amazon sellers. There's all these new the smart home deals, the Fire TV things, the new devices we didn't even touch on. Like, there was a lot happening that day. So yeah, if you're someone who's heavily invested in the Amazon ecosystem, you don't have to worry that you picked the wrong company to build your smart home or your products, your technology products around.
Yeah, good analysis. I like it. Who's your loser this week?
I'm going to say all the tech journalists who had to cover, I think, 6 major events from every big company. I mean, I haven't even gotten to some of the companies and some of the big events that are doing major generative AI products for consumers and enterprises. That just processing and sorting through all of them is going to take a while, let alone trying to figure out what it means for for people who want to use this technology. It's really, really everywhere. And if it's not there now, it will be next year.
Yep. Dominic Santo also says he also agreed. Speechly is a great acquisition. He calls them a winner this week. That's great. So we'll wrap up with my loser of the week. I'm going to say Stable Diffusion.
That's fair.
So Stable Diffusion, like, there's a lot of, you can look at it in a lot of ways. They won the text to image war to a certain extent, just because of like how many different systems have used it to integrate it, particularly from the open source model, but also to Stability AI API. But Midjourney clearly has not suffered from that because it has a very active, very large user base. DALL-E 3, it really is going to bring the OpenAI ecosystem up level it significantly, because DALL-E 2 had fallen behind the pack, and it's got this tremendous distribution through Microsoft and through ChatGPT that I think is going to be really helpful to them. And I think it's going to, not that Stable Diffusion is going away, but I think some of what looked like their march to dominance is starting to erode and may have halted.
Do you think it's Stable Diffusion or Stability AI?
I'm sorry. Well, it's Stability AI. I think, to a certain extent, I think that's right. And they've had other challenges, right, along the way. They're being sued by former members, and people are there's all these disgruntled former employees. I don't know how much stock to put into all of that, but I know they have struggled. They were trying to raise money, and it looks like they have not. Maybe they have raised, but they raised less and at a lower valuation, so they haven't talked about it yet. They've been doing some things on the Stable LLM front, but that's not their own large language model. They're just basically customizing or fine tuning other things like Llama. So I think that I'm not sure how they're doing right now. I think Stable Diffusion is obviously a tremendous innovative success story, but it's not clear to me where they go from here.
That's right.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, everybody, Generative AI News. That's the rundown for this week. I hope you liked it. Let us know what you think. Comment, like on LinkedIn, like on YouTube. We really appreciate you doing that. Come back next week. I think we will be back next week at 11 a.m. on Thursday at our usual time. Until then, everybody, bye-bye.